To move the motion, and Minister, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Cairns, and first of all I'd like to move the motion, and secondly thank the House as well for facilitating the discussion here today and this motion being taken. And Cairns, ensuring that the horse and greyhound racing sector and industries achieve their maximum potential, and in doing so contribute to economic and social development over a wide geographic distribution in our country, is an important aspect of government policy. The valuable contribution to a balanced regional economy made by both the horse and the greyhound industries is well recognised, and it is estimated that the thoroughbred industry has an annual economic impact of €2.46 billion, with direct and indirect employment of 30,000 people, and also that the greyhound sector benefits an estimated 10,000 people economically as well. Government funding, in addition to supporting these key industries, presents an excellent opportunity to yield a high return for its investment, leading to a flow of income through many levels of the economy, thereby providing widespread benefits for society. The sectors are also crucial in driving geographically balanced economy throughout our country. The importance of these industries has been acknowledged by successive governments, and they are supported through legislation and policy initiatives. The world-class reputation for excellence in horse racing, greyhound racing and breeding that Ireland enjoys today has been enabled by the support provided through public funds. The horse and greyhound racing industries receive financial support from the state through the Horse and Greyhound Racing Fund under Section 12 of the Horse and Greyhound Racing Act of 2001. Payments are made from the fund to Horse Racing Ireland, HRI, and to Roscommon-Galway, RCI, or RCE. In the period 2001 to date, a total of €1.64 billion has been paid from the fund to the horse and greyhound racing industries in accordance with the provisions of the Act. The cumulative upper limit on payments from the fund provided for under the relevant regulations has now been reached. Exchequer support provided from the fund is crucial to the survival and continued development of the horse and greyhound racing industries. And in order to give effect to the provisions of Budget 2024, this cumulative upper limit must be increased by regulation. The estimates for my department, passed by both Houses as part of Budget 2024, include an allocation of €95 million for the Horse and Greyhound Racing Fund. This will be distributed in accordance with Section 12(6) of the Horse and Greyhound Racing Act, with 80% going to HRI, a total of €76 million, and 20% to Roscommon-Galway, a total of €19 million. In order to allow my department to provide the monies allocated in the budget, it is necessary to comply with the technical requirement under Section 12(13) of the Horse and Greyhound Racing Act to increase the cumulative limit or ceiling on the amount payable from the Horse and Greyhound Racing Fund by that €95 million that I am allocating this year, bringing it to a total of €1.735 billion. This is achieved by way of the regulations submitted to this House today, and previously to me being here in the Shannon today as well, and also last week I presented to the Oireachtas Committee on Agriculture, Food and the Marine as well on the matter of Cairns. The aggregate limit on the Horse and Greyhound Racing Fund has been increased in the same way in the year 2004 and also between 2009 until now, and every year until now as well. Touching firstly on the importance of the horse racing industry, Cairns, according to a Deloitte report this year, it is estimated that the Irish thoroughbred industry has an annual economic impact amounting to €2.46 billion and supports direct and indirect jobs of some 30,000 people. The total value of Irish foaled exports sold at public auction last year amounted to €293 million. Horse racing generates a significant return to the rural economy across our country, and it provides a positive international profile for our country as well. Of course, behind all the facts and these figures are the thousands of people who directly and indirectly make the Irish racing and breeding industry the fantastic industry that it is today. Statistics released by HRI for horse racing and breeding for the first 6 months of this year point to a continued resilience in the industry. Many figures compare favourably to the first 6 months of 2019, the last full year before COVID-19 pandemic. As proven in 2023 to date, Irish owners, trainers, jockeys and horses are setting standards globally, and their exceptional achievements and enduring influence underscore our international prominence in the sector. The Irish equine breeding and racing industry is extremely competitive globally, despite other major racing nations having much larger populations and economies. The incredible passion and commitment to excellence displayed by everyone in the sector, from yard staff to jockeys to owners, allows us to consistently punch above our weight. The importance of a strong welfare and integrity function to this highly successful industry is crucial, and this is well recognised throughout the industry. We continue to work with Horse Racing Ireland and with the Irish Horse Racing Regulatory Board and other relevant stakeholders to ensure the highest standards of integrity and welfare are maintained. In that regard, in November 2021, the Agriculture Committee for Food and the Marine published a report on horse racing in Ireland, and at the Committee's request, an international equine anti-doping expert, Dr. Craig Swan, was commissioned to conduct an independent review of the IHRB's equine anti-doping programme. This review concluded that the programme does at least match international best practice in most respects and has made significant advances in recent years. It is worth noting that government funding, in addition to supporting this key industry, also presents an excellent opportunity to yield a high return for its investment, leading to a flow of income right through the economy. Support for certain strategic industries is important for future economic growth and can provide widespread benefits for our society as well as our economy. The EU-UK Brexit trade agreement reached in December 2020, which included the Northern Ireland Protocol and the more recent Windsor Framework Agreement, were very welcome for our wider economy, However, the facility to move horses freely without veterinary certification between Ireland and Britain could no longer apply as a result of Brexit, and indeed was not facilitated in those agreements as well. And this has added cost and a significant administrative burden to such movements. The global nature also of major breeding operations illustrates that while Ireland arguably now has leadership position within Europe, its preeminence is not guaranteed. With regard to the importance of the greyhound racing industry, as highlighted in a report in 2021, the Power Report, the greyhound industry provides and supports considerable employment across the Irish economy. It's estimated that in 2019, the industry both directly and indirectly supported over 4,000 full-time and part-time jobs in the economy, and additionally there were over 6,000 active greyhound owners. The total number estimated to be deriving economic benefit from the sector was estimated by the report at over 10,000 people. The greyhound racing industry is part of the social fabric of many parts of our country. The funding provided to the racing sector, helps sustain a long-standing tradition and underpins economic activity as well. The future of the industry is, of course, dependent on a strong governance platform and on the industry having the highest standards of integrity and welfare, founded on a robust regulatory system. There is a strong commitment to improved animal welfare in this sector in the programme for government. Provisions also in the Greyhound Racing Act of 2019, which came into effect in May of that year, are making a difference in this regard. That legislation strengthens the legal basis for the industry with a view to fortifying the integrity of the greyhound racing sector and improving provision for greyhound traceability as well. That new Act also improves the governance of Rasia Con Éireann, strengthens the regulatory controls in the industry, modernises sanctions and improves integrity within the sector, provides the industry with the tools it needs to effect fundamental change and reform. It also facilitates the board in focusing on its priority objective of achieving the highest standards of care and welfare of greyhounds. Further commencement orders for the small number of remaining sections will continue to be phased in as soon as possible, and as implementation continues, enable Rasia Con Éireann to ensure the important heritage associated with greyhound racing in Ireland can continue under appropriate rules and regulations. My department, along with the sector itself, is committed to the continued strengthening of welfare standards in the greyhound industry. Future funding of the sector is continued on welfare standards being upheld, and this is reflected in annual parameters set out by my officials in their liaison with Rasia Con Éireann as well. A key element of the new legislation is the provision for the first time for a full IT traceability system for racing greyhounds. The Rasia Con Éireann traceability system, or RESETS for short, came into operation in January of 2021, provides a mechanism to ensure that racing greyhounds are properly registered and traceable throughout their life stages. These life stages include birth, registration, racing career, all changes of ownership and location, and end of life. Data from the system at the end of September last year indicated that 42,600 greyhounds were subject to traceability. Phase 2 is currently in development as well, Cathaoirleach. In conclusion, Cathaoirleach, given the wide geographic distribution of these two industries and their importance to the rural economy, and indeed the importance of this funding to both of their development and their continued progress, I very much recommend this funding and this motion to the House today to enable the Horse and Greyhound Fund for this year to be distributed to Roscommon-Galway and to Horse Racing Ireland for the benefit of both industries. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I now call on Labour Party Deputy Kelly. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, and I move our amendment. Okay.
I need to move it, yeah.
Thank you. Traditionally, the Labour Party has supported this fund, but every year now we're at a situation whereby we need to relook at the structure of this. As a member of the Public Accounts Committee, we've kind of called for this. It seems to nobble on from year to year. And Minister, I asked last year that we would use the year to relook at how it is calculated, the formula, and also the manner in which we have to come in here every year and vote on it. This needs to be amended. From a legislative point of view, at some stage, will you deal with that, even if it's part of another bill? Because for me, it's a bit ridiculous. Personally, I'm very supportive of the industries, given where I come from in Tipperary. I was born a few fields away from where Tiger Roll was bred. And Tipperary and Kildare are by far the two largest counties when it comes to, I suppose, horse racing, and indeed Tipperary is one of the largest counties when it comes to greyhound racing as well. But the formula by which this calculation is done, it really needs to be looked at. And I note also that my former employers in Fáilte, Ireland, have a thoroughbred marketing strategy which relates just to Tipperary and Kildare. That will tell you the value of this industry, which employs up to 40,000 people. But I do think from an overall funding of different sports as a country, we need to relook at all of this when it comes to the Horse and Greyhound Fund, when it comes to our gambling legislation, when it comes to sports funding, when it comes to sports capital, when it comes to the role of Sport Ireland. All of this needs to be relooked at. Sport Ireland, it comes across as if they're a regulator. They're not. They're not a regulator over sports. They have no say on where sports capital or large sports capital funding goes to, which is absolutely ridiculous. And also then you've got this fund as well. And how collectively between all this funding, which is all meant in a good way, and I support all of it, but how we can ensure that it's being distributed most effectively and being administered most effectively. And how we can ensure that the fund, for instance, that's going towards horse racing is actually being used appropriately and being used fairly, that it is going to smaller players and smaller actors in the industry proportionately as it is going to others. And it's similar when it comes to greyhound racing, to ensure that it's not percentage-wise going in administration as opposed to those who are in the industry. And also, when it comes to the issue of welfare, I believe, Minister, you should appoint some person, if not two people, to the board who come from a welfare background. I know of various different proposals to the Greyhound Board in relation to welfare that have not been taken on board. And I note there are changes afoot in relation to that board, and hopefully that will see changes in that area as well as in the whole administration area as well. One area where I do feel that we do really need to look at is in the whole area of, particularly in the horse racing industry, the whole area of how people are paid. I believe there should be an sectoral employment order in this area, Minister. Thousands of people are employed, but what rates of pay, what working conditions, what hours do they work? Do they adhere to the Working Time Act? This might seem unusual to some people, but for me, coming from Tipperary, where there is literally hundreds and hundreds of people employed in this industry, this is important. I think it's critically important that there is a fair rate of pay for all the people who work across the various different sectors, many of them very low paid. And the reason they want to work in the sector in the first place is because of their love of horse racing, their love of horses. But in many cases, their working conditions aren't up to the level required, and in many cases, they're not paid enough. And this is an area that I really think that really needs to be looked at. The final issue is in relation to gambling legislation, and we know in relation to this fund and its origins and the formulas and all of that. Maybe as part of that, Minister, collectively as a government, we could relook at the overall funding across all sports, across this fund, across sports capital, across a whole range of other areas as well, because in doing so, maybe we'll be able to get to a proper, equitable distribution for everybody, and that includes horse racing and greyhound racing. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. And we now have Social Democrats. Deputy Holly Cairns. You have 5 minutes, Deputy.
Minister, greyhound racing has been in decline for decades. Ireland is one of only 10 countries in the world where commercial greyhound racing is still legal in 2023. Since this government took office, it has given 74 million to the greyhound racing industry, with 19 million allocated in budget 2024. There are 17 tracks in Ireland and no one to fill them. Youghal Greyhound Track had an average of 3 people at their meets during the start of this year. Why is it that this government refuses to acknowledge what the overwhelming majority of the country clearly knows? Greyhound racing, although not exclusively but predominantly, is a cruel industry that has no place in modern society. Despite some breeders and trainers taking good care of their dogs, everywhere greyhound racing is operating, the story is the same, with rampant animal welfare abuses, injuries, fatalities, overbreeding and culls. In country after country, the industry is being banned. In track after track, attendance is plummeting. Yet the government continues to throw millions of euro at it every single year. Year after year, the continued support of political parties in government and in opposition for state funding of this cruel industry shocks me. The Green Party's stance remains a particular disappointment. Years of taking strong positions on animal rights and blood sports only to abandon those beliefs the second they enter government. The Labour Party have tabled an amendment calling for a review of the fund and expressing concerns about animal welfare, while at the same time, it seems, approving annual funding yet again. A free vote was allowed last year on this motion, so it's disappointing to see all Labour TDs' names attached to this amendment. And it was very welcome last year to see Sinn Fein voting against this motion, and I hope it will be repeated this evening. Following the 2019 RTE documentary, which revealed the scale of abuses in the industry, up to 7,000 dogs bred to be killed annually, the Greyhound Board introduced a deeply flawed traceability system. Non-coursing greyhounds are only registered on the system at 12 weeks and only if they were born in the Republic. No dogs born in the North are included. There is absolutely no way of knowing the extent of the overbreeding problem if we don't know how many dogs are born in a given year. We know that thousands of dogs have been bred and then destroyed because they didn't make the cut. Destinations for exports of dogs to any country other than the UK are not recorded on the system, despite the fact that we know Irish greyhounds are still sold to China and Pakistan, both countries with horrendous animal rights records. Since this government has taken office, 438 dogs have died on the tracks and 1,026 have been injured. Some of these dogs were hurt so seriously they had to be put down immediately. And these are only the figures for races. We have no idea how many dogs have suffered and died at trials where, appallingly, vets are not required to be present. The Committee on Agriculture, Food and the Marine's report on dog welfare noted there is virtually no oversight and transparency concerning canine artificial insemination, a process so dangerous for dogs that it's banned in the UK. And yet somehow it is still legal here. Over 500 female greyhounds have been put through this cruel and painful procedure since 2019, all to facilitate a rampant overbreeding of greyhounds, which is a hallmark of this industry here. I fully expect that this motion despite all of these glaring, unaddressed issues, will pass, not with the support of the majority of the public, but somehow with the support of the majority of parties in this chamber. Public funding to the greyhound industry must end. The importance of the industry to the survival of rural communities is fantasy. But if parties in this chamber are so convinced of its importance and popularity, then why not let it survive on a commercial basis? But the Minister, the Government, Labour and other independent TDs do not want that, because they all know the support isn't there and that the industry would collapse without the annual handout of taxpayers' money. When will they face reality and end the state subsidy to this cruelty?
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy. Now we have Solidarity People Before Profit. You're both sharing, yeah? There's 5 minutes between you.
3.5 and 1.5.
Yeah, perfect. 3.5 and 1.5. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chair. I'm opposed to giving €95 million of public money to the horse and greyhound racing industry. Compare it to the 15 million total in core funding for sports organisations in this country, including the FAI, GAA, Swim Ireland, Olympic Federation of Ireland and many others. It's an absolute scandal. There's a lot that I could say about the fact that a lot of this money in terms of horse racing ends up in the pockets of the richest people in this country, or about the more than 6,000 greyhounds that are killed annually because they don't run fast enough. But instead, this year I want to focus on deconstructing this report by Jim Power Economics, which is so often relied upon to say that this cruelty is okay because it's a very important part of the economy. The key sentence in this report is the very last sentence. It says the information and data upon which the report is based was provided by Greyhound Racing Ireland. In other words, Jim Power didn't go and check any of the assumptions, any of the data that he was provided with. Raymond O'Hanlon of Preferred Results has done some work in deconstructing this report, in digging under the figures to show the massive, massive exaggerations that are contained within the report. Raymond O'Hanlon's work will be online for anyone to peruse, and I just want to cite some key aspects of it. He sums up the approach of the Jim Power report, quote, maximise dog numbers, multiply them by extraordinary costings to generate incredible figures for economic activity, which the vast majority of people do not have the time and/or the knowledge to refute. He refers to headline figures calculated in the Power report. One of them, quote, is that the weighted average cost for a dog exported to the UK, of all the costs that go into that, comes to approximately €7,683. The conclusion would be that in order for an owner to break even on the sale of a dog to the UK, of one of these 6,500 greyhounds which GRI claims to be exported annually, the average dog would have to sell for that amount, €7,683. But what do greyhounds actually sell for? There's a report of Cork greyhound sales published on the 17th of, based on the 17th of July 2021, around the same time as the publication of the Power report. The average sales price is €1,078. So what's happening? Are people raising greyhounds for a loss? That wouldn't make any sense. It suggests that the costings apportioned by the GRI for the rearing of greyhounds are approximately 7 times higher than in reality. It would mean that the figure of almost €120 million used as the annual spend by greyhound owners is a completely unsound figure. Another point is that the Power report presents the racing career of a greyhound as being 24 months. The true figure, again coming from the GRI's own figures, is actually 9.6 months. Many of them are then exported to the UK while they race until they're 72 months old and beyond. The same is the case in terms of the exaggerated figures of numbers of people employed or directly economically benefiting, which isn't defined in the report. What emerges is a story of the public in Ireland subsidising the British greyhound racing industry, supplying more than 85% of the greyhounds that are raced there. I'm opposed to this funding on animal welfare and animal rights grounds. I'm also opposed because it's a waste of public money.
On my walks these days, it's common enough to see people out walking with graceful animals, greyhounds. The dogs are invariably rescue dogs. But where have they been rescued from? They've been rescued from abandonment, They've been rescued from a greyhound industry which is scandal-ridden and cruel. It was cruel, it is cruel, and it always will be cruel, because when it is run for profit, it can't be any other way. That is the view of a growing body of opinion within society, I think. For example, the Dogs Trust. Dogs Trust had always called for reform of the industry rather than its abolition. They now want to see it abolished. The ISPCA want to see it phased out within a number of years. Now, if this motion is passed tonight, the amount of money gifted the industry will pass the €300 million mark in the next year. That is money that would be far better spent on socially useful projects. I'm not at all surprised that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael don't see it that way. I think it's a disgrace that the Green Party are going along with this. I note the Labour Party amendment, but I would say to the Labour Party that they need to catch up. They need to catch up with the Dogs Trust. They need to catch up with the ISPCA. But a real scandal on the part of the Green Party.
Thank you, Deputy. And now we have the regional group, which is Deputy Lowry, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Minister, support from the state to the horse and greyhound industry is one of the most important financial outlays in the budget. The money allocated to both industries is an investment. Budget 2024 allocated €95 million to the Horse and Greyhound Fund for the coming year. Horse Racing Ireland is set to receive €76 million of this, while the remaining €19 million will be put to good use by Greyhound Racing Ireland. The increased allocation for the year ahead has been welcomed across both organisations, particularly by Greyhound Racing Ireland. This funding will allow them to finalise their plans for the year ahead. The industry has had serious concerns due to falling attendance at the tracks, resulting in a significant drop in revenue. However, with aggressive marketing and promotion, attendances have been improving again. Greyhound Racing Ireland is continually improving its image and their revenue intakes. They need a continuation of government funding over the next 5 years to implement their development projects. One such development is the extensive upgrade and refurbishment of Kilkenny Greyhound Stadium. This is a very progressive venue with a strong tradition and widespread support from owners, from trainers and from the general public who like to go for a night out at the Dogs. The Board of Greyhound Racing Ireland is enthusiastic about the implementation of this project. It has sanctioned €1 million of funding. A new CEO has been appointed to oversee the development. The local committee are ready to draw down that fund. Minister, I understand that it is your intention to release this €1 million in January. May I suggest that you would bring it forward, as it would make an ideal Christmas present for the local committee. The horse racing industry remains strong and thriving across Tipperary and the country. It continues to build on the stellar reputation that Ireland holds across the world. Few people outside horse racing circles realise the benefits that this sport delivers to the economy. It is estimated that the breeding and horse racing industry across Ireland generates an average of €1.8 billion in gross expenditure annually. This funds more than 10,000 Irish jobs that are directly supported by this industry. Thousands more jobs allied to horse racing benefit from the services they provide. Top-level equine vets, farriers, horse transport drivers, stable hands and grooms are amongst those employed by the industry. In addition, hundreds work at race meetings, providing track maintenance, catering, betting facilities and a myriad of other tasks that must be carried out to ensure that everything quite literally runs smoothly. Ireland's racing industry is one of our biggest and most consistent attractions for tourists. Our reputation as a top racing destination see racing lovers flock to meetings, resulting in a massive boost in revenue for the transport, hospitality and retail industries. Ireland has a very impressive global horse breeding reputation. Ireland boasts everything that top breeders need, so demand to have horses bred here continues to grow. From our temperate climate to our calcium-rich soil, many of the most knowledgeable and experienced experts in horse reproduction travel to Ireland to breed their horses. All combined, Ireland's equine industry provides an annual revenue input exceeding 900 million to the Irish economy. The level of investment in horse racing from the government pales in comparison to the money it returns year on year. Moves to reduce financial support to horse and greyhound racing would be unwise, counterproductive to our economy. Thankfully, successive governments appreciate this and have consistently given financial backing to one of our country's greatest assets, so I therefore welcome the allocation the year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. And now we have the Rural Independent Group. We have three speakers, 3 deputies, and we have 5 minutes between you.
Minister, I fully support and thank the government for this funding for this vital industry. Both industries are so vital. But I speak today the horse industry and the prowess that we have in Tipperary and all over the world, and indeed other parts of Ireland as well. But I want to have my remarks today on the greyhound industry, because it's a vital industry. It used to be a real cottage industry. Every small farmer in South Tipperary had greyhounds. That has greatly diminished now. But I want to salute them, because they do this and mind their dogs, look after them, and the welfare is top priority of them. And coursing now, and indeed greyhound racing is so humane. And we have people here like Deputy Cairns and others, and Deputy Murphy and others, who want to attack and undermine. And Deputy Cairns came up one day protesting, she brought a lurcher. She didn't even know what a greyhound was. And these people speak with such ignorance about a sport, part of our culture, part of our heritage, part of our economy. We are for work, and we want to support people in work, and these industries give valuable work. So I would ask them to educate them, and Deputy Barry, to educate themselves to know what goes on in the real world. It's not all about knock everything and stop everything that's good and productive and provides employment. That's so important that we have those jobs and those the money that's earned around that industry. And they're welcome to come to the meetings in Clonmel, but they won't come, obviously, and see what goes on and any coachings. And I want to also turn my remarks to them and ask them why are they so selective that they will not condemn out of hand the groups of illegal hunters that are going around in Tipperary, where now we have hares in preserves to have them fit for coaching next after Christmas, that they go around with marauding lurchers, terriers and all kinds of dogs with no muzzles, 6 or 7 of them, and they're both tearing hares and rabbits asunder, doing damage to farmers' property, and boasting on videos how they got so many rabbits. It's shocking. They'll ignore that, but they want to attack a good industry, decent people who provide good work, good conditions, and provide valuable industry and valuable turnovers to our state and enjoyment to our people. But no, there's none so blind as those who cannot see at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ongoing financial support from the state through the Horse and Greyhound Racing Fund is pivotal to the viability of both industries, which combined have an economic impact of nearly 2.5 billion and benefits 40,000 people through direct and indirect employment. The legacy of horse racing and greyhound racing is deeply rooted in Irish cultural fabric. Ireland is renowned globally for its outstanding standards in breeding and training, both racehorses and greyhounds. The economic impact of horse racing as an industry has been monumental, contributing billions to the Irish economy. The central breeding and racing sector in Ireland are estimated to generate a staggering 1.8 billion in gross expenditure annually. The industry provides direct support to nearly 10,000 jobs in Ireland, which indirect employment opportunities extending to fields like equine science, veterinary services, transportation and stabling, moreover. And I have very little time left, Minister, but I welcome this bill going through the Dáil today. I think it's high time that people that are objecting here go and see the industry for themselves. They're inside during Church Cross myself. I did go to see. I rang up one day, turned up in the yard within 5 minutes to see the way dogs are treated with the most humane loving, caring treatment of these animals inside in a farm there in Church Cross. And people should wake up and go down and see that and stop criticising and pointing fingers. It's like going out here today and find 100 drivers and find one driver going wrong, but we'll take every driver off the road. And the very same, I went to the finals recently, the Greyhound finals, and I was delighted with the way the dogs are treated.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, first of all, I want to thank you for the funding and to say that all I ever want to see is more funding for greyhound racing, more funding for horse racing. Often overshadowed, the greyhound industry plays a vital role in Irish culture and the economy. The 19 million allocation is a testament to the industry's significance, benefiting veterinarian, medicine suppliers and others in interconnected businesses. I want to compliment the greyhound racing industry that we have in Kerry, the track that we have in Tralee. I want to say about the people who own greyhounds, and other deputies here today, they seem to be completely oblivious to this. They adore their dogs, for example. I'll stick with the greyhounds for a minute. They adore their dogs. I'm talking about people like Tom O'Connor and his family from Celine in Tarbert, people that have grown up with greyhounds, and greyhounds are their way of living, it's their way of life. And those dogs are catered and nurtured better than any person could ever be. I want to thank the horse racing industry in Kerry, the people, the trainers, the owners, the jockeys, the families, the interconnected businesses, the people who run our racetrack in Kerrane and in Listowel and in Tralee, and who provide great entertainment, and it's a very vital part of our vital infrastructure, and it's our way of life. I want to pay a tribute here, and the very short length of time I have, to the late James Kelly, who died recently. He was a great steward in the track in Tralee, a familiar face there every Friday and Saturday night at the weekends, and he was a young man taken before his time. And I just want to say on the record of the Dáil that he was a great greyhound man, a great track man. He served the county of Kerry very well, and a great steward, and may he rest in peace. And I think it's fitting to remember him here this evening in this debate, because he'd like to see money going into this industry. And the more that we'll go into it, the more that we'll get out of it. Other politicians don't understand it. They're out of touch. Their heads are in the sand, and that's enough about that.
Okay, so thank you, Deputy. So we now have Deputy O'Connor for 2 minutes, Deputy, and then we'll go back to Sinn Féin for their 10-minute slot. Is that okay, Deputy? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Cahir. Look, Deputy Healy-Rae beat me to the chase. Another Tom O'Connor. My grandfather was heavily involved in setting up the dog track in Youghal. We had greyhounds. There was 2 generations of our family involved in it. And it's a huge part of the fabric of where I am. And I'm from Youghal, County Cork. And the first point I want to make here, Cahir, look, is there was something said in this chamber that was just not true. That there was an attendance recorded in Youghal Greyhound track of 3 people. The reason that figure is out there is because there was 3 people charged. They provide free entry at the gate. Every night the races are on in Youghal, there are at a minimum dozens, close to 100 in attendance at that greyhound track. And most recently, we had a celebration night there where there was close on 2,000 people that visited the greyhound track in Youghal. And the idea that inciting here in Dail Eireann, that deputies can come in here and misform this House about what goes on in our local greyhound track, which has survived many attempts to be shut down by IGB, is just appalling. And I want to condemn it, because it's not fair. And it's a grassroots organisation run by volunteers who put everything into it. Families, people involved who love and care for their animals. I grew up on a farm. I work with animals every day I'm at home. And the idea of what has been put out here today around animal cruelty is just not an accurate reflection on people involved in greyhounds, and particularly in the sport of horse racing. The idea that horse racing is this sport of the elite is not true. It's one of the few sports in this country that brings people from all social strata together. I think of the success of people like Nina Carberry, Rachel Blackmore, enormous performers for women in sport, for what they've achieved, Davy Russell, other great names in this sport, for what they have done for sport in this country. And horse racing, for the tens of thousands of jobs it provides our economy, for the billions it has brought into the country. For example, the Dublin Racing Festival, 40% of the attendance at that festival in the tens of thousands came from the United Kingdom alone. It brings millions for each major racing festival. And I think there needs to be an injection in reality into what this funding does. It makes a huge positive impact to our economy that's returned in very high multiples. And I think there needs to be some dose of honesty in what's being said inside in this chamber today.
Thank you, Deputy. And now we have Sinn Féin. So, Deputy Kerrane, you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I firstly, to begin, want to acknowledge the horse and greyhound sector and the very positive impact that they do have in rural communities, particularly economic. Having said that, 95 million is an awful lot of money. It is an increase on last year. And again, and I put this point to the Minister last week in committee, there is no rationale for 95 million. I don't understand how that figure has come to. And I think we do need greater transparency and accountability in relation to that amount of money, given it is public money. And for that reason alone, we should have greater clarity on how that amount is reached, and I think we should have greater transparency on that. The Minister will know we have for a number of years, through my colleague Matt McCarthy, submitted amendments year on year to seek a full review of the Exchequer funding, including an examination of the prize funds and how they are perhaps subsidised, and also animal welfare, which is absolutely critical. And questions have been asked specifically in relation to prize funds, and we have questions all of the time in relation to animal welfare, and a lot of genuine concerns in relation to that. At committee last week, Minister, you did confirm that there would be an independent and an external review, and that would shortly go to tender. I welcome that, and that is the only reason that I do not have that amendment brought forward to the motion here this evening. But I think it would be good if you could provide further details in relation to that report and when we might expect it, and what precisely the terms of reference will be for that report. I appreciate the tender has to come, but we need to make sure prize funds and animal welfare are part of that report. I also asked you last week in relation to the 95 million. I don't think it's a lot to ask that both organisations with the 80-20 split would be able to line for line detail how they spend that 95 million. Again, I think that comes back to accountability and transparency, and I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be provided by the organisations. Again, this is public money, and when it comes to public money, I don't think accountability and transparency is a lot to ask for, and it is a great deal of money as well, and we have to acknowledge that. So I would appreciate, Minister, if you could provide further details in relation to the report, and particularly when you expect it to go to tender, number one, and when you expect the report to be concluded. That is really important, and I hope that that report will give people the answers that they need in some respects, but I do think it also needs to give us greater clarity on the amount of funding, the increase in that funding, and the rationale for how 95 million was decided upon. I think that is really important. So the bottom line here is to acknowledge the importance that this does have in some rural communities and maybe in many, but also to ensure the highest standards when it comes to animal welfare and absolute transparency and accountability when it comes to every red cent that is provided in public money to these organisations. And I don't think that's a lot to ask for.
Thank you, Deputy. So as that's all the speakers, so then the question is then, no, oh, Minister, do you want to come? Apologies, Minister, you're to come back in. Apologies.
Yeah, listen, thanks very much, Gaelic, and thanks to all of the members for the contribution. And obviously, as I said in my opening statement, this funding is really important both to the thoroughbred horse racing sector and to the greyhound sector right across the country. There are two very strong industries. The horse racing industry in particular is world leading and is a massive part of our economy with some 30,000 people employed. The greyhound sector is somewhat smaller, which is again reflected in the fact that they have a smaller, only a 1/5 share of the actual funding. But again, the funding is really important to that and to the tracks and to the industry across the country. So we once again intend to continue with our support and partnership with those two industries. We want to see them build and grow in the time ahead. I want to see our horse racing sector stay as a world leader, stay as one of the leading exporters of thoroughbred genetics and foals across the world, one of the leading countries as well for mares coming to be covered, and indeed one of the leading countries across the world as well in relation to horse racing and winning and making an impact right across the continents. So thank you to those who are supporting it. We take on board and understand the opposition, or they acknowledge the opposition, and that not everyone agrees with it. We certainly disagree in relation to that. Welcome the support from Sinn Féin. I've been watching the evolution of Sinn Féin over the last few years now in relation to greyhounds and horse racing funding, and each year they would support the previous year's level of funding, but not the increase. So they're getting to the point now where this year they're supporting the increase as well as the previous years. I see the coalition negotiations with Mr Murphy here and the Social Democrats are getting more and more challenging by the days. Should the numbers cook up after the next election, it's going to be very difficult. But certainly, in terms of the horse racing sector and the greyhound sector, they can be assured that this government are very much value both sectors and are very much committed to the funding. Want to see both sectors grow and prosper in the years ahead, and we're committed to keeping doing that. And I want to thank everyone for their contributions and for the time here today as well. Deputy Lowry mentioned a Tipperary racetrack, and I acknowledge that as well, Kilkenny Greyhound Racing Track. I know it's something he's been engaged with me and Deputy Cahill as well, it's something now we have a new CEO and a new leadership in Roscommon-Galway. The strategic plan we expect to be concluded. I acknowledge what you're saying in relation to Kilkenny, in relation to the strong greyhound racing heritage there, Deputy Lowry, and the fact that it has a very strong following, and indeed the track is in need of investment as well, and that's something that I'm engaging. My department and team are engaging with Roscommon-Galway in relation to. I know it's very high up on the agenda, and it's something we'll continue to work on in the very near future. So thank you for raising that matter, and thank you again to all of the deputies for their contributions here today too. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. So now, Minister, the Labour Party amendment now has been moved. So the question is now that the amendment be made. So we're asking, those in favour say "tá" and those against say "níl." Okay. Yeah, okay.
So those in favour say
Those in favour say "tá." As long as I've done this now.
okay.
Okay.
So
those against?
say
Yes. Yes. Níl. Yeah.
okay, so declare the question.
So now the question is lost, and thank you so much. Is anyone calling the vote?
Just say the question on the amendment is lost.
Okay, so the question on the amendment is lost, and is anyone calling the vote?
So
Nobody's calling the vote.
So put
Okay, so
that the motion be agreed to.
so the motion be agreed to now. Not agreed. Okay.
Okay, so let the members in favour say "tá."
The members in favour say "tá."
The members
And the members against say "níl." Níl.
declare the question carried.
So it's carried. You're calling the vote. Okay.
So we're now suspended.
So we're now suspended till 3:30. Thank you so much.